Welcome to another episode of Mondays with Miles, where I'll be giving you a tip at the beginning of your week to make sure you have a kick-ass rest of your week. This week, we're going to be talking about how it's so important to start noticing the patterns of your life, and how until you start to notice how something makes you feel, whether it be physically or emotionally, then and only then can you start to make changes and adjustments to start to maximize your life. So if you like this topic, be sure to stick around. Be sure to share this with other people. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube page, as I'm going to keep these videos coming out every week to make sure you all have a kick-ass week. Let's dive into it. We all have patterns in our lives. Now, patterns are different than habits. Habits are things that we continually do on a regular basis. We fall into habits. Whereas patterns are typically something that happens to us and then we react in a certain way. So it's noticing those patterns. So for example, my wife, whenever she eats blueberries, she starts to get very sleepy. That is a pattern. She eats something and then she reacts to it in a certain way. So for me, one of the patterns I've noticed in my life is that when I have a big social event, or if I know that I'm going to be seeing a lot of people in the future, whether it's a few days ahead, I start to feel a little anxious. I get on edge. So I have to start doing things that are going to make me feel relaxed and prepared for that social situation. The thing about patterns is we typically react the same every time we do it. So every time we eat something, we might feel a certain way. Every time somebody says something to us, we react in the same way. Those are patterns. So it's important that we start to notice those patterns so we can make changes to them, especially if it's a pattern that is hurting us or holding us back. So once you start to notice what those patterns are, then you can start to make adjustments. So for example, my wife has cut out blueberries. She noticed that every time she eats it, she gets tired. So it took us a while to notice that, but once we notice that pattern, we've cut it out. So that is maximizing your life. When you can cut out the things that are holding you back, cut out the patterns that are holding you back, you can start to maximize your life. So for me, social events. Days before, I have to start visualizing things. I have to start doing relaxation stuff to make me feel comfortable to go in those social events. Now, once I'm there, I'm completely fine, but the build up, that's the pattern I've noticed. So it's noticing those things so we can start to make changes to them and learn how to respond to them rather than instantly react to them. So if you want to learn more about responding versus reacting, I actually talk about this in the Mindset Bootcamp. Go into that. That'll definitely help you. But I think the biggest thing is that when it comes to patterns, the first step you need to take is noticing them. Taking mental notes are what are the patterns in my life? What are the things that keep happening over and over again? And what's causing them? Like I said before, once you start to notice them, you can start to change them. So how do you start to notice them? The biggest thing is just to start taking mental notes of how you feel right after something happens. So if you eat something, how does it make you feel? If somebody says something to you, how does that make you feel? And start to notice that mental note of how do I feel after this? After I eat a greasy burger, does my body feel good? Do I feel energized or do I feel lethargic? If you feel lethargic and you make that mental note, you're more likely to change that in the future. Let's say every time you drink a lot of alcohol, you turn into somebody you don't like. Maybe you're more mean, or maybe you get very emotional. If you can make that mental note, you're more likely to change that in the future. Maybe you don't drink as much. Maybe you go into different social situations. Whatever it is, the more you can take mental notes, the more you can notice it, the more you're more likely to change it moving forward. So it's noticing those patterns so we can adjust them. So all I want you to do this week is take that first step. And that first step is just noticing it. Start writing down how you feel after certain things. Start taking mental notes of how food makes you feel, about how work makes you feel, how somebody says something to you makes you feel. And the more mental notes you can take, the more you can start to realize, what are the patterns of my life? What are the causes to my reactions? If you can start to notice them, you can start to change them, and that's how you have a better week and a better life. So start noticing the patterns and start having a better week.